Welcome, everyone. Hello, Marcus. Hello,
Hey, how's it going,
everyone.
Amy?
It's going. I got an error pop up as soon as the webinar started, hence the look on my face when we first started. So it's all good. I think we're live and running. We'd like to welcome all of you to Building and Pricing Advisory Services. It's very fitting right after the September deadline. I know we're going into the October deadline, but good time to be thinking about pricing and also building services. Before we jump into content for today, let's just cover the logistics. This does qualify for CPE for those of you that would like it. In order to be able to provide that to you, it does require you answer the polling questions. We're actually going to ask 5 today, so you have to answer at least 3 of them. We appreciate all 5 though, because that helps us as we deliver this content and also future content for you. There's a handout for your reference. It is the PowerPoint deck that we're going through today. And then if you have any questions, please fire those through the questions panel. We will make sure we get them answered, or Rachel is also with us just behind the scenes. She'll fire across any answers as they come through, and then Marcus and I will address them as they make sense in today's session. At the end, we have a survey. We appreciate any and all feedback, positive, negative, anything you're willing to share, we appreciate. So look for that when you close out of the webinar. All right, let's talk about what we're going to get into. It's an hour. And it's a lot of great content. Marcus is going to share lessons learned inside of Dillon Business Advisors. I'll share lessons learned working with hundreds of firms. But we're really diving into building service plans and then pricing strategies. And we'll spend the majority of our time on pricing strategies because, as Marcus has described it, and many of you likely have as well, pricing is an art form. And so as any good artist, you explore other artists' work in order to get inspiration. And so today we're here to give you some inspiration on what you can do with your pricing art form inside of your firms. Is that a good way to explain it, Marcus?
Well, and just encouragement or accountability as well. Just that you are focused on increasing price. As seasoned accountants, you know that price increases just drop to the bottom line. So who doesn't love more profit? So yeah, I think those are some of the conversations that we're going to have. And I'm very fortunate that I was given kind of some of the, I guess, ability to price certain engagements early on at different firm that I was part of, and that stayed with me throughout my ownership of DBA, and so I think we're better for it, for sure.
Perfect. All right, well, I have one other thing I'd like to discuss with all of you, and this goes along with just continuing to draw inspiration from others, right? Every firm is slightly different, everyone will do things slightly different, but it's gaining and gleaning that inspiration from others who are doing something similar. So I want to invite all of you, if you are unaware that we are having an event, you now are aware. We're doing a fall get together in the Woodlands, Texas. I'm from Michigan. Texas isn't that bad, it's pretty good.
Well, November is nice, right? I think our highs are only in the 90s around there, so
it's a good time. It's a good time. There's a QR code if you're interested in looking at agenda and digging into it more. We welcome you to join us November 6th through the 8th. And then if you're unable to attend a live event, we do have a live stream. So inside of our collective community, for those of you that are in the community, look on the events page and you'll see the ability to join this live stream. You can RSVP to it if you want, or you can just wait for the notification that it's live and get your pricing and package building questions answered.
Yeah, so that'll be next Monday on the other side of this webinar, just going a little bit deeper with your questions and having more of a on the spot, right, as you will, next Monday at 12 o'clock.
Yeah. All right, so let's jump into advisory. First thing is I want to make sure we're all on the same page. What is advisory? Lots of conversations in the accounting industry, like what does it mean? It means different things to different people. I asked ChatGPT what advisory meant, and this is what Chat said. and I think it nails it. I tweaked nothing, so I'm giving chat all the credit right now. Somebody has defined this, but just a range of services aimed at providing expert advice and strategic guidance. It's outside of the traditional accounting tasks, but it's all focused on helping, and it looks different for different clients, right, Marcus?
Yeah, I think it's fitting that you pulled this from ChatGPT, because what we're all being told is that AI and ChatGPT is going to replace us, right? So I think the one piece that it can't replace in my mind is advisory. I think each of us and those that are on the other side of the screen add a unique perspective to whenever we do see the black and white data that accounting or tax tell us, that you're drawing off of your career, your experiences, your industry knowledge to kind of add advice. And as much as we would love AI and ChatGPT to make our jobs easier, I think that's where you have to differentiate compared to the other commodity-like products that maybe some of our firms do on a daily basis.
Right. Yep. I've linked a podcast episode down below from Marcus and Rachel's podcast, the Inside the CFO Advisory Meeting. So real client stories that Marcus and Rachel walk through. Check that out if you haven't already, just to get an idea of what does an advisory meeting look like inside of DBA, and how does that compare to what you're doing or what you want to do with your firms.
Yeah, and it's funny, I don't know if Leslie's on the other side of the screen today, or actually having advisory calls herself during this hour, but Leslie listened to that podcast. I don't know that she listens to every podcast, and she's also a CFO in DBA, and she's like, you kind of nailed it on what DBA does as far as like our CFO level advisory. So I'm pretty proud of that comment and that conversation, because even fractional CFO, client CFO advisory, that's different for every firm. So that is a good preview of what DBA does for its clients, if you are curious.
Yeah, good. I'm glad that Leslie was in agreement and that she wasn't doing something different. Like, that's what you're really proud of.
Leslie, if she's doing something different, it's better. I'll just tell people that, so.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it. You're doing what Leslie's doing. So.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get into how do you do bundled services. But let me stop 1 second. Rachel has a poll for us. So we're actually going to launch 2 polls right back to back. The first one, curious for all of you on the other side of the screen, as Marcus says, what are you looking for to help support your firm on your journey of servicing your clients? So that poll is live out there. It is a multi-selection, so pick as many as you want out there.
You didn't have any fill in the blank either. So if something's not on there, drop it in the comments or the questions section, and Rachel will get back with you. And if it's a great idea, we may roll it out, right? So.
All right. We have results in. So winning percentage wise for the most is mastermind groups, but that's great, followed by online community. So thank you everyone for answering that. Appreciate seeing what it is that will really help you. Now the second polling question, just get 2 right out of the way, is just about your service offerings, your current ones. So Rachel will go ahead and launch that for us. What are you currently bundling, or what do you plan to bundle? Mark all that apply here. And this is marking all that apply. So I know everyone does things slightly different, which is 100% okay. Everyone needs to put their own spin on it, just like pricing, and it's an art form. What you want to do and the services you want to provide are also unique to your firm. But it looks like, as expected here, 98%?
It is.
All right.
So we got a lot of accountants on the call today, which is good.
That's good. You're in the right place. You
Yeah.
made it to the right webinar. All right, perfect. Thank you everyone for answering that. Let's just start. We're already bundling services. This is really just a recap on bundling to make sure we're similar pages how we think through. I'm starting first with the door to your firm and the ability to walk into that front door and be served by your firm means that you have to have a base service plan, base service offerings that you will do for every client that walks through the door. Have we always operated this way, Marcus, inside of DBA?
No way. Yeah. So, it's one of those where build your own bundle, right? Could have been an option at one time within DBA, not afraid to say it. So, you think about going into a fast food restaurant, right? You can buy everything separate, a la carte, and kind of do your own thing. We were guilty as charged on that as well. And then much like, McDonald's or anywhere else you go that's fast food, you can do a bundle, right? You can kind of make it a meal, if you will. So I think that was where, okay, some of these just naturally go together. Let's start bundling them, and then making it make sense for how we wanted to grow the business.
Yeah, so then next, after we bundle just the standard services that we will do for everyone, right? We will do accounting for everyone, we will do tax for everyone. Everyone needs those services. Then it's add-ons for services that everyone might not need, which would be like payroll, sales tax, bill pay, right? Those are examples of additional add-ons that could be added to package offering.
Yeah, so going back to the poll results, that's a great view into the audience, right? So accounting, 98% of you are saying like, hey, we want bundle accounting with these other services, like that's the base. So where we also think about it is the add-ons, those are not available without the base, right? You can't just go grab an add-on itself. So for us, we made that decision like payroll. We're not just a payroll only shop. I know a lot of firms do that or have affiliated businesses that do payroll only. The same with tax. We don't want just a tax client. So the way to get to those services is after you are an accounting client. So like that's how we started thinking about it, and ultimately rolled out the packages that we have now.
What does that look like? Really quick question for you. What does that look like for clients who maybe they don't need accounting support because they have accounting teams in-house?
Yeah, I think whether they're an existing client, like a legacy client is what I would say, like maybe they were with you before you really wanted to start going down this route. You can be flexible on that. Like we still have some of those clients where we don't have bundled service, but they're a big enough relationship to where we have fit them in a bundled service, if you will, but we may not do accounting because they've just got a really solid team and we come alongside and do some of these other projects. But walking in that front door today, if we had a new prospect coming in that wanted to just jump over accounting and go straight to payroll, straight to tax, we know to tell them no, because we've seen such good ways to do things once we do have control over the accounting and what it tells us.
Yeah, clean, and it's clean. So that leads us to like level 2 and level 3 here, which you can see just increase in touch points essentially is level 2, level 3. But Marcus, to your point, anyone coming through the door today could never just jump to level 3. They could never just jump to level 2. They always have to start at that base. So starting somewhere, if we look back where we started way back in the day, when we did start doing bundled services inside of DBA, this is a look at what those service offerings were. And these lived out there for 6 years, 5 to 6 years. We were using something similar to this with success, right? I mean, pricing we'll get into, and in the early days, learning the art form of pricing and not losing our butts on it.
Yeah, I think this was a step in the right direction from where we were, right, versus that a la carte menu. Just as we do within all of our businesses, you just have to keep moving, keep evolving. Once we got here, this worked for a season, but then it it wouldn't take us to the next level where we were wanting to go and build out a team for certain different packages. So within this, like even what we had here was how can you go to the third level if you didn't need payroll? So like answering some of those questions, and even the terminology that was used at that point was confusing to the market because it was an acronym, and that acronym, it didn't say what we did. So it was just an acronym, and you had to explain to a prospect what the acronym meant. And everyone's definition of that acronym that uses the acronym is different. So like some people may include other services in that certain level. And so it's just confusing. And I don't know about y'all, but the first time you start losing a prospect, like it's kind of a downhill slide. So if you can come out of the gate and explain exactly what you do and the language all starts to match up, it's a much easier sales process and hopefully on to service.
Yeah, so this was just a really good starting point for us, which allowed us to then evolve to where we are today with packages. We're going to get into the pricing conversation. I have specifically hidden some things that normally display. This is straight from our Dillon Business Advisors website, but just focused on the package offerings that are here. Essential being that base level, that is how new clients get into the front door of Dillon Business Advisors. And that is an essential CFO annually. We can see everything that is included there. And then moving up to, is it quarterly touch point that they want instead, up to a monthly touch point, up to something else that they need that warrants a discussion, with all of those additional items sitting on the right-hand side there. Sales tax is an additional add-on, payroll services is an additional add-on, bill pay services being an additional add-on.
Yeah. Yeah, so where we started here was the next evolution of pricing. And part of this is we actually brought in consultants. So people that had outside perspective and did, different things. They saw what we were doing with that acronym, and they saw other people in the market using that same acronym, and they're like, this is confusing. You don't rank at all for that. And much like templated websites, if you have a templated website and use some of the same language as like your peers or your competitors, you're not going to rank on anything because you're not original. And so I think that's part of why we started to actually get data to reinforce why we needed to evolve. And it was good for a season, but it wasn't good long term. So that's whenever we started to really define what our packages were going to be long term. And we started with that first package, that CFO annual package. That is what we wanted to do for every client. And so that's how we built that package. That includes their monthly accounting. We no longer wanted to do quarterly or annual accounting. We just knew the benefits that go along with monthly accounting. We also wanted to take point on their tax returns. We knew that that was such a benefit and a value add for the overall family that we wanted those two together. And then the other piece there is just the advisory, what we're all trying to grow, what we're all trying to get into. So, as these options for the commodities of services that we may provide right now become more prevalent through technology, that you can build and shift your business over to more advisory. So in that annual package, we wanted at least one meeting built in just to be able to kind of review and build rapport with that client, and then also speak to their business and their financial results. So that's what we wanted to do at a minimum. How we structured or built from there was just more touch points. So as you can see, we go from an annual to a quarterly to a monthly touch point. And with that, it's just more advisory. So it's more of the advice, more of the relationship, more of the touch point. And you will have clients that pay you for a relationship, and it will be your best clients. So I think those are the pieces that we started to see. The other thing that we did in all of this is we removed some of those add-on services that not every client needed. So maybe a client did not need payroll services. We were no longer going to include that in a package. We were always going to price it separately and price some of those commodities through a calculator. The commodities themselves, whether it's bookkeeping, payroll, bill pay, they're easy to price because you can have a calculator and you can kind of scale it out. But advisory, that's the art form. So what we started or did is remove those add-ons because not everybody's going to need sales tax. Not everybody's going to need bill pay or payroll. So those are why we landed on this.
Did we end up also removing services from our website that we were no longer going to do at all, right? Like one-off things that clients might need. Like Martin's asking, what if a client needs a specialty service like business valuation?
Yeah, so if you're in the business of providing valuation, you feel like that is a great service line that you want to build around in your business. And what we've said before is if it's a service line that you're planning to grow and actually more than 10% of your top line revenue, then by all means have it on your website. But if it accounts for such a small percentage of your overall revenue and it's more of a one-off, I'm not going to include that on my website because it's just going to confuse the market. So I'm going to have my core services on my website, nothing more, because then we can build a team around those core services and actually grow and scale the business healthy.
Yeah. And building the team around the core services is the key component there, right? To scalability, your favorite word, inside of the firm, right? But it just allows for better planning on team, on structure, etc.
Yeah.
What biggest takeaway from bundling services? I mean, we could talk about bundling services, but we really want to talk about pricing. I want to be able to dig into your brain, Marcus, and share insight with everyone here today. So biggest takeaway, bundling services is just that clarity is key, right? Making sure that the conversations you can have with prospects, it's very clear, it's not muddled, there isn't a lot of confusion on their part or confusion internally on what that represents. So going from like cluttered chaos inside of the office and outside, right? If it's cluttered inside, that's what's being displayed externally to customers, clients, prospects.
Yeah.
And having clarity internally.
And all that to say, like DBA, we transitioned, right? So we still have some legacy clients which we would not market to and provide those services, but they're core relationships that we have maintained. And I know that all firms are looking to evolve. So just because you do a service today for a legacy client doesn't mean that it goes on your website. So your website should be a billboard or a view for your ideal prospects to know exactly what you do. It should not have your one-off engagements that you sometime do, or maybe somebody told you that you would like to do this one time as part of a consulting agreement, but you've never done it. If you've never done it and it's on your website, take it off your website. You're confusing your prospects. So I think that's the other piece where even the language that we use, if you have that acronym, and let's say back office is built into that acronym, in the market, in the prospects, like so many people have a different opinion of what back office actually means. That means, are you actually filing things for me? Are you keeping up to date with receipts? Are you calling my customers? So you have to spend valuable time with the prospect to even define what your acronym is and back office. So if you need an acronym, build an acronym around what you actually do. And I'm not even going to charge you for it. So just call it accounting, tax, and advisory, ATA, and just go from there. And if you were able to say, our packages are accounting, tax, and advisory, that's exactly what you do. And you're on to the next conversation, which is hopefully a pricing conversation on a really good prospect, because they know exactly what you're willing to do for them. And most of us, it is accounting, tax, and advisory is what we're trying to build.
Yeah, bundle into it. All right, there's a recap of the building service plans, everything that we just discussed at a high level there for you. So let's dive into pricing strategies and spend the remainder of our time together talking about that. I know some questions are coming through. We'll address those on our next poll, and Rachel's been answering them as well, but we'll get them. So let's just start first with, from a pricing strategy standpoint, what should we not be doing? And only a couple things listed here. You may have differing opinions, but the first one being don't charge by the hour. I think it's safe to say that many of us are already well aware of that, right? It's a huge conversation, still a conversation inside of the industry, but just a reminder, we don't want to be charging by the hour. It takes way too much time to do that.
Well, I think you can't get paid for efficiency, right? So the more effective you become in an industry or with a client, if you stay at an hourly billing model, like you're either going to inflate those hours so you can be just as profitable, which we know is not healthy, or you're actually, you're just going to have less revenue,
Yeah.
is how that works. So you can actually use your hourly rate, if you have determined that, to help you build out some pricing in your packages. Like if you need that as a start, by all means, you can go back to that, but you would never want to forward facing to a client show an invoice by hour for most of your projects.
Yeah. Discounting monthly services, don't do that. We will talk about discounts and an effective way to utilize discounts sparingly, right? But never discount the monthly service that you're providing. And don't include technology fees. Going forward for new
Yeah.
clients, let's go with that, right?
And these are mistakes that we've made at DVA over the years. So what we're trying to do is get out of some of these mistakes throughout. And so what we do now with new clients, right, is we don't discount the monthly service fee. Like our pricing on the website is what they would see. That's like what we define as market. Now we'll talk about discounting and how to use that in a bit.
Yeah.
But also technology fees. Like we love Intuit, we love QBO. We do not love getting that monthly invoice or price increase from Intuit or QBO. So we don't want to be responsible for that in our margin of the work that we do. So early on when we kind of switched, moving people from QuickBooks Desktop to QBO, we would absorb that, right, as an incentive to like, hey, let's go on this journey together. Many of you know that use QBD, like it's phasing out, right? Sales of QuickBooks Desktop end this month. So if you really want to go buy 2024, you need to drop this call and go buy QuickBooks Pro because they'll stop selling it this month. Now it'll live on, right?
Yeah.
And you can band-aid it with no service, but they're stopping sales of some of these programs. So we felt like to move people over into this cloud-based environment, we're going to absorb the cost.
Yeah.
That's no longer needed. Everybody's there. Everybody has monthly subscriptions. Just ask your client how many different streaming services they have. And so I think this is just the norm of where we're at. And as such, their business should be the ones that pay for those technology fees.
Yeah, it's definitely, again, something that served us well in the industry for a season, and so no longer necessary. So let's talk about with pricing strategies what we do want to be doing. So we do want to be pricing it monthly. We want to determine what the market value is. So that can be done through price testing. It can be done through secret shopper.
Yep.
What are some of the other tactics that have been utilized over at Dillon Business Advisors?
So I think market pricing, that's going to be unique to each market itself. Maybe if you're a on-prem kind of company, or if you serve a certain industry, maybe there's a kind of a benchmark on services and fees. Maybe it's that 1% to 2% of top line revenue is where you need to kind of hang out. You can also look back to what your current clients are already paying you for some of these services to build that, just that confidence in what you're worth moving forward to the overall market.
Yeah, charge and onboarding fee is also something which we'll get into. The next slide I'm going to pull up will actually be the pricing that we have listed. And so we can talk through a little bit like how we've arrived there to help you as you're thinking about your products and what you're pricing. But the key things that we're just going to discuss throughout this pricing section is, the availability of time needed internally has to correspond to the price that your client pays. So as we discussed in the step up in each of the package offerings, if it's more touch points, that's more internal time necessary. The right team is going to also allow price to give you realization that you want. Is a way to say it, right?
And that's the other, probably most of you that are on this call are leaders or owners in the firm. And so I don't know about you, but you don't want to build any additional bundles or any services or product lines around yourself. And so as you're thinking about this and kind of the packaging and then also the pricing, what are the team members that can help you serve these clients? How can you delegate? So that needs to go into this. And how do you effectively push work down to the appropriate level, if that makes sense. So I think a lot of that is what you have to realize as you're moving forward with pricing.
The final one I want to point out there is set a goal for where you want your pricing to be. And I'll give you a very simple formula here in just a couple slides. But let's dive into our actual, it'll advance for me. This is back to the slide that I posted earlier, but with all of the pricing listed there. This is pricing that is listed on the website. We did not include pricing for the longest time. We now do. It helps qualify a lot of prospects. They can qualify themselves, right?
Yeah.
But talk to us a little bit, Marcus, on how you arrived at these starting prices listed on the website.
Yeah, so I think we'll start with the base. I would recommend that you always start with the minimum level that you're willing to provide to the client or the market as a prospect. So we started with that annual, and we looked back and said, okay, what are the commodities that are present within this package, right? And I don't mean to demean any of the services that any of us do, but a tax return is a commodity. Bookkeeping could be a commodity. Payroll, definitely a commodity. So what are those commodities? And those provide the starting point of what things are worth in the market, especially if you have a technology company that all of a sudden is going to be able to do that commodity. It's really easy to find market value for that and start with there. So even if you went out to like H&R Block, who now does business tax returns, and see how much are they going to charge for a 1065, and maybe it's $4,800 a year. That doesn't include bookkeeping. So $400 of that $1,500 could be just for the tax return, right? And then so if you layer on the personal return, that's another few $100s, add on the bookkeeping. So you could really quickly get to about $1,200, let's say. And if you're hourly, kind of what you feel comfortable with, what your value you think, which it needs to be more, is around $300 an hour, you could just say, hey, for that additional hourly meeting, I'm going to bump it to 1,500 and just test the market. Now that's not a monthly meeting, that's just a all in, but you're probably touching this throughout the year, you know, just making sure it's going, maybe just not as much as a quarterly or monthly client. So, and that's why we always started with the base. What we did is we removed payroll. Not every client needs that. We removed bill pay. We also removed sales tax. Not every client needed those services. So they're over there to the right. They're going to be priced completely separate with their own calculator, because each of those pretty much is a commodity.
So down at the bottom, we also have the implementation fee, and some good questions just got asked about implementation. So Tina will address those in just a second, but that's $7,500 for implementation. So every new client that joins the firm is whatever package offering they end up in, and their fee ends up being with add-on services that get included. There is a $7,500 implementation fee. What exactly does that fee include? Does it include QBO cleanup that needs to happen? Does it include back tax returns? What is included in that fee?
So as part of the sales process, we're already reviewing their QBO file, or their accounting if they're not in QBO, and then we're moving them to QBO. So maybe there's a conversion in there as well. So that conversion could be part of that onboarding or implementation fee. Also the cleanup. Now DBA, we also have set templates as far as like the reports that we load into QBO. That implementation fee covers all of that work to get the client up onto the wheel of service. And the reason why we're there is because we were tired of writing off so much time in the beginning to kind of get this client up on the wheel of service. And we weren't profitable on that client maybe for the first full year, you know, just all that hard work that goes into building that relationship and getting the relationship started on the right foot. What it doesn't include if they've got some back tax filings, we'll price that out separate, because then moving forward, those would be included in their monthly price. But then if there's a lot of cleanup, a lot of complexity, we also build on top of that 7,500. So right now we're actually onboarding an existing client, a new business that they are acquiring, and they've got about 45 to 50 team members that they're onboarding, and as part of that, it's a heavy lift for our team. And so we charge an additional $2,500 just for that payroll onboarding. So their total onboarding fee was $10,000. they paid it, they happily paid it, honestly. So I think that's one of the pieces, like, why would you write that off or not do it if people are willing to pay that for you?
So back when you first started charging an onboarding or implementation fee, whatever any of you would like to call it, right? It's implementation for us, but it was 3 times the monthly fee,
Oh,
right?
it wasn't 3 times was healthy, right? So I think 3 times was like, okay, we worked up to 3 times, but we started where it was like 1 time and then 2 times and then 3 times the monthly fee just to kind of get to where we're at today and essentially 7,500, which could be, you know, 2 to 4 times their monthly fee depending on what service level they're on.
Yeah. We promised we talk about discounting, so let's just have that conversation here for a moment.
Yeah, and that's the piece where, like, this implementation fee, if I'm gonna kind of woo a prospect and get them over to sign, and that's all dependent on the capacity of the firm, right? So if we've got excess capacity in the firm, and what that means is no overtime, people are raising their hand in teams and saying, "Hey, I'm available for work if anybody's got projects." Like, we actually have that going on in DBA. So if that's the mindset of the overall team, I will do a discount to get some of the clients on the bus and fill out the service, just because capacity isn't an issue. And so I'm much more willing to discount or incentivize somebody to sign and reduce implementation, take that hit, and not touch the base level of services, because those base level of services could last 5 to 7 years, and we're building price increases on top of those. But many of you that own homes too, it's the property tax and the value of your home, right? It just increases over time. So I don't want to start that relationship with the monthly fee being discounted. I'd rather the one-time project be discounted and maybe include their back tax filings or some other discount to get them on and signed.
And that was even price testing that
Oh, yeah.
you arrived at that, right? With just testing, raising the implementation fee, raising the monthly fee, and the reaction of prospects led you to that decision as well.
Yeah, and being told no and working with that, but it also anchors price. So if you've tested anything around price anchoring or anything like that, if someone sees these prices, they're automatically going to assume they're at $15,000, $2,000, $3,000. As you'll see, those are base starting prices and real fine print right underneath it. So it gives us the option, if somebody's got multi-location or just a little bit more complexity, we can build upon that. So and implementation is no different.
Yeah. What is, Diana's asking a great question. Is the implementation fee the same for new businesses as it is for an existing business?
Yeah, great question. We'll actually discount it for a new business just because there's no cleanup. So it depends, right? Everybody's favorite answer. So if I can go get $7,500 on a new business and we're starting that relationship profitable out of the gate, I'm going to get it. But if we can't, then we're going to give some, additional incentive, whether it's an existing client that's starting up a new business or maybe they acquired a business and the accounting's really, really clean. It's just being fair with the prospect or the client.
That's your wiggle room area, really. So another good question came through, and it's just, what's average business revenue or complexity? So this is a really great question, and the best way to think about this is where your fees fall in comparison to clients' gross revenue, right? And so we maintain a range of 1 to 2% of client gross is where fees typically end up. But the best way for you to arrive at what is the percentage range for you, given your market, given where you're located, or clients that you're servicing, where they're located in an industry that they're in, take your profitable clients and look at where your fees fall in comparison to growth. So what is your percentage range? Because you need to know a baseline for where you're currently at, right? we don't want all clients in there if we're losing our butt on a bunch of clients, because then that brings our percentage down, and maybe that's not a healthy percentage that
Yeah.
we should be at.
Yeah, and I would also, if you're able to kind of dissect the services that you offer as well. So we had to go a step further in that and see where, we were the most profitable and had a lot of synergies. And I'll tell you, our base clients that we did not provide payroll services to were much more profitable than our payroll add-on clients, because every 2 weeks, every week, every month, there's payroll that you got to run. And so you got to touch it. And payroll's that commodity that you can't price it much higher, right? And I haven't met anybody that does payroll advisory. Maybe they're out there, but I mean, tax and accounting advisory is really where we're at. So, but yeah, we landed in that 1% to 2%. And when we saw that we were over 2% of our clients' budgeted revenue, it was either that we were a luxury to the business, like, they were either in growth mode, or we were just, everything was so stable that they didn't mind the luxury. Once we were over 2 and additional price increases, which we'll talk about here in a bit, those are the clients that churn out, because we're a burden to their business. And as much as we want to see them succeed and be a part of that team, sometimes referring them on is a more healthy decision for both sides.
Yeah, definitely. So lots of great conversation and lots of questions coming in. Rachel's doing a great job over there. Thank you, Rachel, in answering them and also addressing some of them verbally here. I want to get
I'll say
into
one more thing. Like,
Okay.
we worked up to this, so by no means we're not saying you have to start here by any means. The other thing that went into this is, some of you may follow DBA and know about the team of 3 model. We needed this to be profitable, for those 3 levels of service to have budget to do their job well. So as we started and grew from that base level of service, and maybe only 2 people ever touched that client, it was a profitable engagement. But as we built out the team and kind of the different roles in the team and had delegation throughout roles, this is just where we needed to be profitable on these engagements. And as Amy and I are preparing for this, and she's getting frustrated with me because it's like she wants a calculation. She wants a spreadsheet that we can just plug it all into. At the end of the day, DBA, we don't need to work for any less. So thankfully, we're just at that point where we don't need to accept a client at $500 a month. And I'm thankful. Like, we were there one time, and some of you may be there, but we're not there today. So we're not going to come off this base pricing and just discount it so much, because we just don't need to. So I would say, by doing the things that are necessary and looking at annual price increases, you will get higher, right? Inflation's higher. So hopefully you're at least matching that. But this did not happen overnight, and it was a lot of trial and error to get here.
It was a lot of trial and error, but I love that you brought up that I just wanted a calculation, right? And so, or I wanted
calculation on payroll. Yeah.
How much analysis needs to happen? What are we looking at to assess profitability and realization? And how many years should we go back and look at it? And then what I'm about to share on the next slide is a very simple pricing goal, just a goal to establish, and it will demonstrate in a very simplistic way how we arrived at the essential monthly fee. Just to boil it down, and that was an aha. Sometimes in our industry, or as humans, we want to overcomplicate things, and so completely not complicating it here, keeping it super simple. Here is a formula for you on setting a pricing goal. So I'm gonna, like, anticipation here, though.
Is like building on this side,
First, I need a poll, though. Rachel's going to launch the next poll, which I'm curious if you have a pricing goal in mind. Like, what do you want your minimum monthly fee to be? You're trying to get there. You're maybe you're not there yet. Maybe you already are there, but do you have one? And if you do, what is it? And if you don't have one, pick one, because your only options is to pick a dollar amount on this poll.
Yeah, and I think, Amy, this question is really good because this is just the minimum monthly price, right, for services. We didn't try to overcomplicate this question by saying, is it a payroll client? Is it a bill pay client? Like at the end of the day, how many relationships do you want? What do you want that monthly price to be per relationship is really where we want to think about things.
All right, it looks like majority were between the 1,000 to right under 1,500 range, right? 42% of us. So this is perfect. All right, let's take a look at our simple pricing goal you can set if you would like to revisit the one that you have, right? And so in its simplest form, if you know the profit that you want and you add the cost that it takes, you get your total revenue that you need to make, right? Divided by 12, that's your monthly goal. And then if you divide that by the number of ideal clients or client families is how we would refer to them here, that gives you your minimum base package price. So stay with me. Ideal number of clients. What's that number? If we go with Dunbar's rule, we have Marcus, single owner, 150 is the relationship rule that Dunbar has stated that you can maintain and still like know who everybody is. And it doesn't get so far out that you have no idea who you are working with, right? So if we have one partner, maybe it's 150 is the ideal number of clients. If there's two partners, maybe it's 300, 150 each, whatever it might be. You can pick any number that you want. But if I show an example on the screen to make math work well, let's say that we want profit to be $1 million, a little over $1 million. And we have about 60% in costs, right? So our minimum fee ends up being $1,500 a month for 150 clients, gives us $225,000 a month in revenue.
Yeah. And that's really like, that's the all-inclusive side. So I know many of us still have additional, legacy clients or things that we've wound down. So like this is just, 225,000 a month of MRR. That feels really good. We're able to achieve a lot, get the profit we want and pay the team that we can and pay the technology companies now too, apparently. So I think that those are the things that you kind of have to factor in, like look at your historical, look at your discretionary net income, add that in, and then your cost, and you can calculate what it is. And like Amy said, that's the Dunbar rule, 150. We could probably handle a little bit more, but I don't need to have that many relationships in my life. And then the same, like Leslie's there too. We could probably add a little bit more just because of our setup. But yeah, that's a great calculation.
Keep it simple. When you want to overcomplicate things, just look, it can be simpler.
Yep.
All right, let's get into how we went about this. We've already alluded to it and we've been discussing it as we've been talking, but I think it's good to see it on the screen, right? So you have your existing clients and working with existing clients, and then you also have new clients. New clients are a little bit easier. They have no expectation. Existing clients, you've probably been doing everything for them at a very low fee, and now you want to raise that fee, right? And so strategy with existing clients is first get them into bundled service offerings. That's priority number one over just raising their fee, right, Marcus?
Yeah, correct. And so I think this has happened over time as you're grading clients, moving them over to ideal service offerings. Hopefully at the end of the day, you have ideal clients in ideal service offerings. And going back to like those earlier slides, like what's the minimum we want to do for every client? You could look at it that way. And if you've got certain clients that you're not doing that minimum for, do you either get them into bundled services or do you exit them from the firm? Is essentially the two options to think about.
Yep. Once they're in bundled service offerings, then we work to get them up to market price.
Yeah. It's not about where you start, it's about where you end, right? Or where you're able to stay the longest, right? So if you, as we'll show here an example in a little bit, like we started some of these prices low, either because we were just not as mature as we are now, or to get them on the bus. I don't know. I've slept since then, but you know, it's one of those where moving them up over time and making a price increase just a normal part of the business life is very doable.
So, and discounts, this is kind of, we talked about it earlier. Discounts, using those to get them up to market price. We'll show the example, but we can discount the implementation fee to get new clients onto the bus. We can discount as we work to increase up to market price. So if the jump is going to be 200%, maybe we're using a discount for a year, 2 years, whatever feels good to you as an artist of pricing, then you can, it's one of your tools.
Yeah, it's a lever you can pull. And so just like we're doing the discounts to get somebody up to market, the same can be said on new clients. You know, I think some of the learning that we've seen on our side, especially if you have somebody, additional person that's pricing and having prospect conversations, having clearly defined price is an easier process for that sales conversation. So Rachel handles a lot of that now, and its pricing is on our website versus way back in the day, and pricing was a made up number for some made up acronym that, you know, it didn't matter. And it was just how much can we get? And so I think that's the other piece where once it's shared across the organization, a new client this morning through Teams, Leslie said, hey, a new client starting a new business, what do I price them out at? And I'm like, they're gonna be a quarterly client, $2,000, they're gonna have sales tax, $250. Go take it to them and say, we'll also discount the onboarding from $7,500 to $5,000 because it's a new business and it's clean. So yeah, I mean, once you have that in your, you know, on your menu, if you will, then you can go in real quick and have that conversation versus the emotional turmoil of, am I pricing it right or wrong?
Yeah, exactly. Emotional turmoil is I'm glad you stated that, because it is definitely, how are you feeling in that moment when you are pricing them? Is your heart very big? Are you lacking sleep?
Yeah.
What is it? All right, let's take a look at an example. So this is a actual client from 2022. This is when this client joined Dillon Business Advisors, right?
Yep.
And they were on a middle package, had payroll was included. The QBO fee was included in this $800 a month.
Everything. So everything was included in that middle fee. We were doing payroll. We were doing everything that was necessary. This is actually a vet client. So he was starting a new practice, Texas-based. This is where we started, right? And so I think his first year revenue was around 400,000 or 500,000. Real easy to kind of get on the bus. And what happened is we did not price increase in 2023 like we should to align with the growth that he had in his business. So yes, we started at $800 a month, which is low all in. And then at that time, it was like, how much can we get for onboarding? And it was actually, we felt really comfortable presenting 2 months. And so, you know, that first draft is 3 months, but you know, it's one of those how it's broken down. So you fast forward to where we're at today, and the price increase that we presented to him and he accepted in April, because our team does a great job for him and his business has also grown. So if you fast forward from that $800 a month to where we're at today, you want to show that one? Uh-oh. It's like everybody's like, hang in now. I don't know, Rachel, I can't hear you either. Maybe we'll go through this on the live stream next
Very
week.
choppy.
Oh, there you go. You back?
Okay, maybe we're back. It was very choppy. So everyone could hear you. It's great. I'm sure what.
Oh, you're out again. So. But going forward, I don't know, the screen probably won't update. So where we're at with this client today is actually at a price of $1,665. There you go, you showed it. So this is how we presented the price increase to him. So instead of just calling it a one line item thing, if this client chose to go price out our services, we wanted him to go price out exactly what we were providing for him. So obviously not everyone's going to call it Premier Team of Three with quarterly CFO touch points. Like that's on our website. He can also go to our website and see what that price is and what's all included. And then from there, we built out every other thing that we did for that client, including the QBO fee, including his property tax rendition. And we couldn't raise him all the way up to that $2,400, $2,500 that market would call that price to be. So we chose to put a loyal client discount there to kind of bridge the gap. And he happily accepted this. What will happen is we'll wind down that discount over time. So maybe it'll only be 500 next year, maybe it'll be 250 the next year. So we essentially moved him from an $800 a month price point all in to 1665. And he went from a revenue of about 500,000 to about 1.4, 1.5 million now. So all of that is in line with his business results as well. So I would encourage you not to sleep on price increases. Actually view that in line once a year or whenever your client, their business allows for it.
So biggest takeaway from this is increasing prices consistently, right? Is that your biggest takeaway?
Oh yeah, like I kick myself. We didn't do it in 2023. I thought, the efficiencies that we were making within DBA with like the team structure, and we were by all means, like we were making huge strides on just the cost alone. So I wanted to give the clients the benefit of the doubt and not raise prices, but in doing so, like we missed a huge opportunity. And so when we had to go back to them 2 years later in 2024, it was higher than what an annual price increase would have been. So I should have gone 2023 and got a smaller price increase, 4 or 5%, as opposed to, across the board about a 10, 12% for 2024. And in this case, 100% price increase, right, is what we did. So I would say just encourage you to look at that. Maybe this is the time to do that for you and your clientele, but we actually shifted that to a March and April process for just different reasons. But yeah, don't sleep on it. And then the other thing is, the thought that your prices are already too high is just a myth inside your own head. That's something that you're dealing with personally. And if you need a group of people to help unpack that with you, we'd love to help, do that over at Collective, whether it's in, the membership or a group itself or one-on-one. We'll help you fight all your demons. Come on over.
All of them. Let's ask a couple of other polling questions. So Rachel, if you can launch the next one. And the next polling question coming up is just about pricing. So have you ever been told no, or how many times have you been told no? So Marcus, your response to this question is a lot of times?
I get told no a lot. And that's not only in like our house, like that's with clients on when it comes to pricing too. So, but yeah, if you're not being told no, then you're definitely not raising high enough. Like the value you bring to those relationships is more than you would know.
So I want to address a question that came into while you're answering that poll. Kevin, you asked a great question. Where does that 1 million profit come from? So that was assuming a 40% going to the bottom is what that was, right? The 60% cost. Marcus, do you have any comments on 40% going to the bottom?
No, I just think, yeah, it's, we've all heard a third, a third, a third. So as you structure your firm, to kind of be more in line with the business, and depending on what you've seen as like cost and overhead in your firm, 40% is definitely achievable. A lot are in that 30 to 40% is what we would see as like owner discretionary income. So, but yeah, that's where we saw, and who doesn't want to make $1 million a year,
Yeah, and Jennifer, you're spot on. Nobody complains about price, you're not charging enough. All right, let's look at, a few times is what we got majority here. Our next poll is last one that I want to ask today, and it's just about what's your fee increase planned for 2025. It should say price, but because fee bothers Marcus, that's what got put in there.
Yeah, fee, it's just I don't know, it's not a fun word. So price, investment, if you study sales, and I didn't do that the whole time that we've owned DBA, but you want to use the right language, especially whenever you're asking a premium for that value.
So it looks like majority, about 37% are at the 5% range, which is very
really
typical
safe.
range there.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think that's great. And I would say at a minimum, 5% is really where you would want to be. So that's great to see.
So I want all of you, we spent an hour together today talking about bundling services and pricing and ideas to help you continue to craft your art form. Marcus and I want to leave you pondering this today. And so as this loads onto the screen, if another owner came into your firm, what is the first thing that they would do?
Yeah. And I think this is a very real question. It's relevant to the time that we live in as the accounting industry, with a lot of external investment, M&A activity happening at a pace we've probably never seen before in our careers. So if Marcus, if private equity, if somebody were to come into the firm, what's the first thing that we would do? And, part of that is, if you can answer that question and you know exactly what it is, then why aren't you already doing it? And a lot of times what that new owner will do is they'll start with pricing. And it's just 99 times out of 100, that's what they're going to do. So I think that's also the encouragement of you knowing what that right next step will be. And if you're curious, like, what would Marcus or Amy really do if they were to come into our firm? Reach out. We'll tell you, we'll kind of do an assessment and actually give you, hey, this is the first step. This is what we would do. And then here's the second step. Here's the third. So happy to do that for you if you're curious. But then we also have some additional follow-up kind of resources that are there if you'd like. So Amy, anything else to add as far as, we've covered a lot. We're over by 2 minutes. Maybe give some fractional CPE for that. But yeah, I think it was a good conversation.
It was a great conversation. If you have additional questions, feel free to fire them through. We'll make sure they get answered. Next steps, these are all hyperlinks when you save the PDF. So we'd love to see you in Texas. We'd love to see you on that live stream. We'd love to see you in our community, or for those of you looking for group support and accountability, or one-to-one. Also love to have a conversation with you about that. So thank you everyone for joining us. You will get your CPE certificates in the next day or two, and appreciate all of you. Thanks, Marcus.
See ya.